Hello, my puppets. I have a special story today because I have my mom's birthday and I wanted to say happy birthday. So I'm reading Cinderella because I'm reminded when we went ahead and watched the Rodgers and Hammerstein, and then later on it was remade with Brandy, and here I am in my own little corner in my own little chair. So I can go ahead and read this story because I want my mom to know how much I love her and how much I appreciated when she read me stories growing up. And so Cinderella, being the Grimm's fairy tale that it is, has child abuse and misogyny and unwarranted blessings and curses alike. But that's not going to change all of the wonderful little things that come up in my memories and daydreams. And so I hope that you enjoy it as well. So, Cinderella. There was once a rich man whose wife lay sick, and when she felt her end drawing near, she called to her only daughter to come to her bed and said, "Dear child, be good and pious, and God will always take care of you, and I will look down upon you from heaven, and will be there with you." Then she closed her eyes and died, and the maiden went away to her mother's grave and wept, and was always very pious and good. And when the winter came, snow covered the grave with a white covering, and when the sun came in the early spring and melted it away, the man had taken himself another wife. The new wife brought 2 daughters home with her, and they were beautiful and fair in appearance, but at heart they were black and ugly. And then became very evil times for the poor stepdaughter. "This stupid creature to sit in the same room with us," said they. "Those who eat food must earn it, and she is nothing but a kitchen maid." So they took away her pretty dresses and had her put on an old gray kirtle and gave her wooden shoes to wear. "Just now look at the proud princess and how she's decked out," they cried, laughing, and they set her into the kitchen. And there she was obliged to do heavy work from the morning until night, get up in the early morning and draw water, make fires, cook and wash. And besides that, the sisters did their utmost to torment her, mocking her and strewing peas and lentils among the ashes and setting her to pick them up. In the evenings, when she was quite tired out with her hard day's work, she had no bed to lie on, and was obliged to rest her head on the hearth among the cinders. And because she always looked dusty and dirty, as if she had slept in the cinders, which she had, they named her Cinderella. It happened one day that the father went to fair, and he asked his 2 stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Fine clothes," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the other. "Well, what will you have, Cinderella?" said he. "The first twig, father, that strikes you against your hat on the way home, that's what I should like you to bring." So for the 2 stepdaughters he bought fine clothes and pearls and jewels, and on his way back he rode through a green lane, and a hazel twig struck against his hat. He broke it off and carried it home with him, and when he reached home he gave the stepdaughters what they had wished for, and to Cinderella he gave the hazel twig. She thanked him and went to her mother's grave and planted a twig there, weeping so bitterly that the tears which fell upon it and watered it, so it flourished and became a fine tree indeed. Cinderella went to see it 3 times a day, weeping and praying each time. A little white bird would come and rise up from the tree, and if she uttered any wish, the bird would bring her whatever she had wished for. Now it came to pass that the king had ordained a festival that would last for 3 days, and to which all the beautiful young women of the country were bidden, so that the king's son might choose a bride from among them. When the 2 stepdaughters had heard this, they too were bidden to appear, but they felt very pleased, and called on Cinderella and said, "Comb out our hair, brush our shoes, and make our buckles fast. We're going to the wedding feast at the king's castle." When she had heard this, Cinderella could not help for crying, for she too would have liked to join the dance, and she begged her stepmother to allow her. "What, you, Cinderella," she said, "in all your dust and dirt, want to go to the festival? You have no dress and no shoes, and you want to dance. But as she persisted in asking, at last her stepmother said, "I have strewn a dish full of lentils in the ashes, and if you can pick them all up again in 2 hours, you may go with us." The maiden went out to the back door that led into the gardens and called out, "O gentle doves, O turtle doves, and all the birds that be, the lentils that lie in the ash, come pick them up for me. The good must be put in the dish, the bad you may eat if you wish." And then there came to the window 2 white doves, and after them some turtle doves, and at last a whole crowd of the birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering, and alighted among the ashes. And the doves nodded their heads and began to pick-a-peck, pick-a-peck. And then all the others began to pick-peck, and put together the good grains into the dish. And before an hour was over, all was done, and they flew away. The maiden brought the dish to her stepmother, feeling joyful and thinking now she should go to the feast. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no proper clothes, and you do not know how to dance, and you would be laughed at." And when Cinderella cried for disappointment, she added, "If you can pick up 2 full dishes of lentils out of the ash, nice and clean, then you shall go with us," thinking to herself, for that's not possible. And when she had strewn 2 dishes of the lentils among the ashes, the maiden went through to the back door into the garden and cried, "O gentle doves, O turtle doves, and all the birds that be, the lentils that lie in the ash, come pick them up for me. The good must be put in the dish, the bad may be eaten if you wish." So there came to the kitchen 2 white doves, and then turtle doves, and then at last a crowd of all the other birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering as they alighted among the ashes, and the doves nodded their heads and began to pick-a-peck, pick-a-peck. And then to all the others they began to pick-peck, and put all the good grains into the dish. And before a half hour was over, all was done, and they flew away. The maiden took the dish to her stepmother, feeling joyful, thinking that now she should go with them to the feast. But she said, "All of this is no good to you, and you cannot come with us, for you have no proper clothes, and you cannot dance, and would put us to shame." And then she turned her back on poor Cinderella, and made haste to set out with her 2 proud daughters. And as there was no one left in the house, Cinderella went to her mother's grave under the hazel bush and cried, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come down to cover me." Then the bird threw down a dress of gold and silver, and a pair of slippers embroidered with silk and silver, and all in haste she put on the dress and went down to the festival. But her stepmother and sisters did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess, as she looked so beautiful in her golden dress. Of Cinderella they never thought of at all, and supposed that she was still sitting at home and picking lentils out of the ashes. The king's son came to meet her, and took her by the hand and danced with her, and he refused to stand up with anyone else, so that he might not be obliged to let her go of her hand. And when anyone came to claim it, he would answer, "She is my partner." And when the evening came, she wanted to go home, but the prince said that he would go with her and take care of her, for he wanted to see where the beautiful maiden lived. But she escaped him and jumped into the pigeon house. Then the prince waited until the father came and told him of the strange maiden that had jumped into the pigeon house. The father thought to himself, "Well, surely it cannot be Cinderella." And he called for axes and hatchets and had the pigeon house cut down, and there was no one in it. And when they entered the house, there sat Cinderella in her dirty clothes among the cinders, and a little oil lamp burnt dimly in the chimney. For Cinderella had been very quick, and had jumped out of the pigeon house again, and had run to the hazel bush, and there she had taken off her beautiful dress, and had laid it on the grave, and the bird had carried it away again, and she put her little gray kirtle on again, and sat down in the kitchen among the cinders. The next day, when the festival began anew, the parents and stepsisters had gone to it, and Cinderella went to the hazel bush and cried, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come down and cover me." Then the bird cast down still even a more splendid dress than on the day before, and when she had appeared in it among the guests, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince had been waiting until she came, and took her by the hand and danced with her and her alone. And when anyone else came to invite her, he would say, "She is my partner." And when the evening came, she wanted to go home, and the prince followed her, for he wanted to see what house that she belonged to. But she broke away from him and ran into the garden into the back of the house. There stood a fine large tree bearing splendid pears, and she leapt as lightly as a squirrel among the branches, and the prince did not know what had become of her. So he waited until the father came, and then told him that a strange maiden had rushed from him, and that she had gone up into the pear tree. The father thought to himself, "Surely it cannot be Cinderella," and then called for an axe and felled the tree, and there was no one in it. And when they went to the kitchen, there sat Cinderella among the cinders as usual, for she had gotten down on the other side of the tree and had taken off her beautiful clothes to the bird in the hazel bush so that she could put on her old gray kirtle again. On the third day, when her parents and stepchildren had set off, Cinderella went once more to her mother's grave and said to the tree, little tree, shake over me, that silver and gold may come and cover me." Then the little bird cast out a dress, the likes of which had never been seen for splendor and brilliancy, and the slippers were of gold. And when she appeared in this dress at the feast, nobody knew what to say for wonderment. The prince danced with her alone, and if anyone else asked her, he answered, "She is my partner." And when it was evening, Cinderella had wanted to go home, and the prince was about to go with her, when she ran past him so quickly that he could not follow her. But he had laid a plan, and had caused all the steps to be spread with pitch, so that as she rushed down them, the left shoe of the maiden remained sticking in it. And the prince picked it up and saw that it was gold, and very small and slender. The next morning he went to the father and told him that none should be his bride save for the one whose foot the golden shoe should fit. Then the two sisters were very glad, because they had pretty little feet. The eldest went to her room to try on the shoe, and her mother stood by, but she could not get her great toe into it, for the shoe was just too small. Then her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut off the toe, for when you're queen you will never have to go on foot." And so the girl cut off her toe, squeezed her foot into the shoe, and concealed the pain, going down to the prince. He then took her off with him on his horse as his bride and rode away. They had to pass by the grave, and there sat two pigeons on the hazel bush and cried, there they go, there's blood on her shoe, the shoe is too small, not the right bride at all." Then the prince looked at her shoe and saw the blood flowing, and he turned his horse around and took the false bride home again, saying that she was not the right one, and that the other sister must try on the shoe. So she went to her room to do so, and got her toes comfortably in, but her heel was too large. Then her mother handed her the knife, saying, "Cut off a piece of your heel, and when you're queen you will never have to go on foot." So the girl cut off a piece of her heel and thrust her foot into the shoe, concealed the pain, and went down to the prince, who took her as his bride before him on the horse and rode off. When they passed the hazel bush, the two pigeons sat there, cried, there they go, there's blood on her shoe, the shoe is too small, not the right bride at all." And then the prince looked at her foot and saw how the blood was flowing from the shoe, staining the white stocking. And he turned the horse around and brought the false bride home again. "This is not the right one," he said. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man, "only my dead wife left behind her a little stunted Cinderella. It's impossible that she could be the bride." But the king's son ordered her to be sent for. But the mother said, "Oh no, she's much too dirty. I could not let her be seen." But he would have fetched her anyway, and so Cinderella had to appear. First she was washed her hands and face quite clean, and went and curtsied to the prince, who held out to her the golden shoe. And she sat down on the stool and drew her foot right out of her heavy wooden shoe, and slipped it into the golden one, which fitted her perfectly. And when she stood up, and the prince looked into her face, he knew again that the beautiful maiden was the one whom he had danced with, and he cried, "This is the right bride!" His stepmother and two sisters were thunderstruck and grew pale with anger, but he put Cinderella before him on his horse and rode off, and as they passed the hazel bush, the two white pigeons cried, there they go, no blood on her shoe, the shoe is not too small, the right bride is she after all." And when they had thus cried, they came flying after and perched on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and the other on the left, and so remained. And when her wedding with the prince was appointed to be held, the false sisters came hoping to curry favor and to take part in the festivities. So as the bridal procession went to the church, the eldest walked in on the right side and the younger on the left. And the pigeons pecked out an eye from each of them and returned to the elder on the left side and the younger on the right, and the pigeons picked out the other eye of each of them. And so they were condemned to go blind for the rest of their days because of their wickedness and falsehood. So there we have the conclusion to our original Cinderella. Even her father was like, no. And it was so awful, but also like terrible maiming and awfulness for everyone all around. It's just the worst. And I think that can be delightful in itself in its own morbid way.